everyone, today I have a hands-on review of the new DJI Mavic 3 Classic drone. I have so much example footage that I've shot to share with you, everything you need to know about this drone for both photo and video. So I want to shoot some test footage, and we're filming this video in the south coast of New South Wales, Australia, by the way. Not only are we going to take a hands-on look at this Mavic 3 Classic in today's video, but I have comparisons with other drones, and I also want to answer the question of whether this drone is worth buying or not. The DJI Mavic 3 Classic has a 20 megapixel camera which uses a 4/3 CMOS sensor. We have a prime lens on the Classic, which is the full frame equivalent of 24 millimeters, and I'm happy it has a variable aperture as it can make it easier to fly without an ND filter. I personally like to fly without ND filters when I'm focusing on taking photos on a flight, as I want to be able to use a fast shutter speed. But if I see something that I want to capture in video mode, I can easily bump up my aperture and still capture smooth cinematic footage without having to land the drone in between. The main difference we are seeing between the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Classic is the Classic is missing the telephoto lens of the Mavic 3. I have a review up of the Mavic 3 on my channel. I'll leave it linked in the description if you want to watch. I shared lots and lots of real world examples that I shot using the telephoto lens, so you can use that video to decide if telephoto is a feature that you need in a drone or not. With the Classic, you can use up to 3 times digital zoom. I personally would only use this to location scout, for example, as you can see a loss of sharpness and quality at 3 times zoom. The Mavic 3 range, including the new Classic, has 46 minutes of flight time. Just as I mentioned in my Mavic 3 review, this is a substantial amount of time to have a drone in the air on a single battery. Even when I'm getting both photo and video, I don't feel rushed to capture all of my shots, and I cover a fair distance. On a single battery flight, I'm even getting unplanned and extra shots as I find I have a little extra time. There's going to be a lot of water featured in today's video. We've got oceans, lakes, rivers, pretty much any kind of water you can think of, it's going to be in today's drone shots. By the way, complete disclaimer, this is not a sponsored video. DJI did send me this drone to be able to test it out, but all thoughts and opinions are completely my own. The Mavic 3 Classic films in 4K, DCI 4K, and 5.1K at 24, 25, 30, 48, and 50p. You can also choose to film in H.264 or H.265. All this footage you're seeing in today's video is in 4K in both 25 and 50p. I also filmed examples in slow-mo. We have the option to film in 4K 120 FPS or 1080 200 FPS. Slow-mo induces a pretty significant crop on the video, but I still think it looks pretty decent. Unlike 3 times zoom, we do have nice clarity and sharpness to this footage. Something I would love to see is subject tracking available in slow-mo. I think when you're capturing footage of fast-moving subjects such as people or animals or vehicles is when 120 FPS would be the most effective. Let me know what you think in the comments. I've got a really cool shot here. We have so much dynamic range in the sky in the foreground, so I'm going to take some photos as well in RAW, and let's jump into Lightroom and take a closer look at those photos. So we have the file dimensions of the photos just here, but I'm going to leave it on my camera settings in case you're curious as to what settings I use to take each of these photos. I love the photo quality of the Mavic 3, and the Mavic 3 Classic is no exception. Look how beautiful these files are. So I'm zoomed in here to 100%. You can see how far away I am because these people are very little in the frame, but you can see so much clarity and detail in just right up to the edges of the frame. It looks so good, and we have a nice range of color in these photos as well. Here we have another angle, and the watercolor of Sydney on this day was insane. This is completely unedited. It looks so beautiful. Again, we have so much detail and texture here. I did accidentally slightly overexpose the photo, so let's see how much we can recover the highlights. So just there, we are able to save those blown out sections. Here we have another photo, and I'm just going to apply one of my Lightroom presets that I use for my portrait photography usually, and that's the before and after. I feel like it looks a little bit crazy. I'm just gonna bring that down there. before and after. So while we're on location, I did take this photo because I think we can take a really good look at dynamic range in this image because we've got the sky and the dark foreground. So I'm going to decrease the highlights and increase the shadows just to see how much we can push the image. And as you can see, we are able to save quite a lot and bring out a lot of detail in this photo. And we've still got a nice amount of sharpness and clarity and colors as well. And I love that you can't really see any noise anywhere either, even though I did push the highlights and shadows quite far. The Mavic 3 Classic weighs exactly the same as the Mavic 3 at 895 grams. It's the same size folded up, it's the same size opened up to fly, and uses the exact same battery. The only difference is the Mavic 3 Classic will need a new set of ND filters, as the filters for the dual lens of the Mavic 3 don't fit the single lens of the Classic. I'm also really happy that the Mavic 3 Classic is getting released with the new controller that we saw released with the Mini 3 Pro. Speaking of that drone, the Mini 3 Pro is another great beginner-friendly drone, so I thought it would be interesting to fly both drones up and get a similar shot as possible so we can compare the quality. So, which drone is worth buying? If you're deciding between the Mavic 3 and the Mavic 3 Classic, if you go for the Classic, you are getting pretty much an identical drone minus the telephoto lens. I think that one's an easy comparison. So I've got really similar shots with both drones here. It's not perfectly the same, but it's about the same. With the Mini 3 Pro, we only have D-Cine-like. We don't have actual D-Log in that drone, but we do have D-Log in this drone. So that's our first comparison. For traveling or personal projects, I do love how tiny the Mini 3 Pro is. It fits easily in any of my camera bags and is super light at 249 grams. While you are able to capture high quality 4K footage on the Mini 3 Pro, something to note is that it does film in 420 8-bit in the normal color profile and 420 10-bit in D-Cine-like. On its own, the footage looks perfectly fine. However, if you are the type of person to mix their drone footage with their camera footage, then the 422 10-bit recording of the Mavic 3 and 3 Classic, in addition to the Hasselblad colors, will more seamlessly blend your footage together. I'm so excited that we have cruise control now available as well. So if I just start to move forward with the drone, I've got it set to a shortcut. Cruise control is a shortcut on my C2 button on the controller. So I'm going to just fly forward. So I'm flying forward, I'm going to hit cruise control, and then I can just let go and it will continue at the same speed that I was flying. And then that means I can concentrate on getting my shots instead. There have been a few firmware update features introduced with the Mavic 3 Classic, but these are not exclusive to the Classic. So you will be able to use these features like cruise control in the Mavic 3 range. There is also a night mode option for filming now, so here's a look at all the ISOs available. In night mode, we can use ISO 800 up to 12,800. So Active Track is so fun to use with these drones. So of course, we're going to test it out today as well. So Dan is going to get off his camera, which he's using to film this video right now, and jump on his bike instead, and we're going to track him. Subject tracking is so easy to use on the Mavic 3 Classic, and I really enjoy seeing what it does while tracking a moving subject. I think the drone does a great job at framing the subject and making the scenes look cinematic. I do think the middle lower third framing of a slower moving subject like Dan on a bike, for example, looks great, but as I mentioned in my Mavic 3 video, it would be amazing to have the option to choose where your subject is going to be placed in the frame. Another small inconvenience is the on-screen controls tend to cover up the subject, so I would love to be able to move this somewhere else so it doesn't cover them up. When tracking a faster moving subject like the car, for example, it's cool that there are instances where it frames the subject in the center of the frame. It did a great job at keeping track of Dan when he went behind a tree for a little bit. It did lose him towards the end and jolted to catch back up when it saw him again. To be fair, it was a fairly large tree, so it did lose sight of him for a few seconds. If you're trying to decide between the Mini 3 Pro and this drone, the Mini 3, which I have a complete hands-on review on my channel as well, I'll leave a link for that down below, only has basic tracking. So you're able to select the subject and press go, but you don't have any other controls beyond that. On the Mavic 3 Classic, you have more options with subject tracking, like being able to decide what direction the drone is filming from, which can be extremely handy. Not to mention, we do have better obstacle avoidance on the Mavic 3 Classic since it has omnidirectional sensors. You can see here I was trying to get it to fly into this bush and it just wouldn't budge. It wouldn't let me do that. The Mini 3 Pro on the other hand has tri-directional obstacle avoidance with sensors missing on the top. I also tried out quick shots. Even without a prominent subject, it does a notable job at keeping track of the marker that I chose. I decided to shoot a tree and some rocks, and it did a great job with both. My only criticism of quick shots is that it's only available in 4K 30p, so it would be nice to see a 25p option here. So that is all I have for today's review of the DJI Mavic 3 Classic drone. Let me know what you think of all the footage and of the review down in the comments below. But as always, thank you so much for watching. I make new videos every single week, so I will see you all next time. Bye!